سعدت صراحة أن أنا أكون في عمان، أول مرة أحضر كونفرنس في عمان. وطلبوا مني البرزنتيشن بالإنجليزي، بس أنا قاعدة أشوف الجميع هنا أو 99% من المحاضرين يتكلمون عربي، فاسمحوا لي البرزنتيشن بالإنجليزي. Good morning again. There's no presentation. I'm waiting for them. My name is Dr. Layla Ali bin Saif bin Harib Lemheri, and I worked for the government for 30 years. The first 10 years of the first decade is in DIWA, Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, so it was in infrastructure. And then I was member of the founders team of the Roads and Transport Authority. And then I moved to aviation, and I was head of the transformation of aviation in the UAE. After 30 years, I've retired and created a group of companies focused on helping governments, helping organizations, transforming itself, changing their structure, changing the way they do business, policies, regulation, processes, and team structures in order to adapt to the future. All right, we have the presentation here. So I was asked to give you a little bit brief about the future foresight in transport, and what does that mean? So let me give you, I only have 10 minutes, and this is a 50 slides presentation, very long, but I will not take that much time. So what is future foresight? First, it's a discipline for leaders. The way leaders are leading their organization is with a future foresight baseline. Okay, thinking of the future. But what is actually the foresight? It's exploring uncertainty. It's imagination. Okay, so most leaders, especially transport, by the way, they are working on the past. They are looking at the facts as statistics and looking at estimates and simulations of transport models based on the past and based on the current and based on the future, but the same behavior of the systems currently. Okay, so what is the future foresight? Is looking at our situation differently. So using imagination. Okay, these are all things that I will skip because my colleagues have talked about. So what are we doing today with a longer impact for transport? So this is the future foresight. It's not strategic planning, it's not transport planning, but it is putting our strategies and our imaginations using simulation models, using different explorative models, which I will share with you later, in order to come up with better solutions in the future. Because actually we are in the future, right? We never imagined the way the transport is behaving right now. I'm past because I have 10 minutes, so these are all core methods of future foresight. But we understand the process of the future foresight. Horizon, PESTEL, looking at all socioeconomic factors. But now we have the AI, we have intelligence systems to help us imagine the future in transport. And these are some of the tools that we can use right now. It's artificial intelligence, like Future Platform, Fibers Online, Itonics Innovation. There are so many AI tools that will help us put into our variables in the future and come up with a future foresight model. So future foresight is a very systematic model with imagination and also understanding the behavior of the commuters, understanding our cultures, because we can bring transport planners from consultancies, different consultancies in the world, but they don't understand our culture. Locals commute differently. Our community are made differently. For example, I live in Khawanij, and I have people working in the house. These people wants to go on their vacation to the city center. How can they do that? They don't have any means to do that because we did not consider them as part of our citizens, part of our commuters. We didn't understand the behavior of our society and culture. And this is what we can come up with, understanding all the behaviors and using those tools. But why this matter now? Why do we need to have future foresight and strategic planning is not enough? And look at the challenges. In 2050, we have double the demand on transport. We see it in Dubai. Just now, somebody asked, what is the solution of Dubai Sharjah and Dubai Ajman traffic? And I will explain why we have a problem right now. Transport, there is a huge impact on transport. I come from aviation, my last decade. It was 3% impact on environment. Transport, road transport is 23% with marine transport. We have 90% of developing cities with air pollution. And now we don't have that air pollution in the UAE and the GCC, but in future we are going to have it. We are getting dense and dense. Our cities are getting dense and dense. So we will get those impacts in the future. And the inefficiencies. If you are stuck 2 hours from Ajman to Dubai, you know how much money we have lost with that delay. Trillions of money we are losing because of the delays. And that's air pollution as well. So what are the global teams, global forums are talking about? They are talking about decarbonization and electrification, right? And this is what we see. They are talking about resilience to shocks. What kind of shocks? COVID was a shock. Wars is a shock. Okay, there are different shocks that we need to imagine in the future. What kind of shocks we will have to our system in order to make it resilient. Digitalization and data governance. All my colleagues talked about these things. Inclusion, diversity, equity, the poor people, access to mobility, and governance. And this is where I want to talk about, okay? Because I can see that a lot of people here are working with the government. And it starts with you. It's not the transport planners. It's not the trillions of money we spend. We can spend trillions of money on transport. But if we don't have efficient governance, we don't have efficient teams capable, understanding, then we are not going to deliver. So this is all discussed before, 55% growth in EV markets, and we can see electrical buses worldwide. We can see the previous presentation, and these are the trends across the globe. So what are the challenges ahead? And this is the most important things. Let us see the challenges. The climate events. So if you have floods, if you have any kind of climate events, we didn't have climate events. We had a very small climate event in Dubai where it poured rain, right? When it poured rain, what did our system, react? We had issues. We had traffic. We got stuck in traffic for so many hours. And this is just a small shock. So we need to imagine what kind of shocks we will have in the future. Heat waves, okay? Heat waves can disrupt electrical vehicles, by the way. If you have a heat wave, it can affect your batteries. And we are prone to heat waves in our climate. So what are we going to do with it? How are we going to create a system that is resilient, that can adapt to these kind of shocks? Cybersecurity risk. One of my companies is cybersecurity awareness. So we provide awareness to the government agencies. 99% are people opening a malicious email. 99% of attacks is because of human behavior. And we spend so much on technology, you know? Electrical car can be hacked anytime, right? So cybersecurity is increasing with the technology increasing, but what are we going to do about it? And that is something that you need to embed in your future foresight. Supply chain vulnerabilities. In COVID, we saw this very clearly, right? There's a lot of companies went bankrupt because the transport chain was broken, okay? They couldn't get their materials or products within their supply chain. So it is very important for the economy. Transport is very important for the economy to be uninterrupted. Safety, so these are some of the behavior stuff that people, you know, you can take it as a factor while you are doing your planning. Safety fears. For example, my maid will come out of she will take an Uber, okay? And Uber is very expensive for a maid to go on vacation. So what she's going to do, she's going to take illegal bus shuttles. Those illegal bus or illegal cars, they will do carpooling illegally. But that is a big safety issue, right? So we need to consider those behaviors and the safety issues with the commuters. Disabilities, of course, it's a big part of your plan. Geographic barriers for low-income communities. And we need to provide policies. Let me tell you an example of how you develop a policy in order to shift behavior. Why do we create policies? Like, for example, SALIC, okay? Is SALIC a system or a policy? It's a policy, right? It's a policy. Why do we have it? In order to change the behavior of the commuters. We wanted them to change. I was a founder of RTA, so we built the whole transport system back in 2005, and I will tell you what went wrong, what decisions we take in order for us to be in this situation right now. So SALIC is a policy to change people commuting from one road to another road, so to release the pressure from a road, right? But when we created that policy, we didn't anticipate that everyone doesn't care about SALIC in the beginning. So they will take whatever road. So SALIC didn't affect them. So it didn't change. And people looked at this policy, they are taking our money. Second, it was just encouraging people to go on public transport. If they go to public transport, again, I'll give an example of myself. I live in Khawanij, in Dubai. I want to use the metro. How can I reach the metro? When we created the public system, we gave priority to the roads in Dubai. Back in 2005, we had a beautiful transport plan, which will cover 50 years of transport supply. But those 2 years, we gave priority to the roads. We wanted to finish the roads before finishing the public buses. So we told the public bus agency, just wait. After we finish the roads, we will create the bus lanes for you. Or let's do the metro and do the roads, and then we will do the community shuttles. And what is a community shuttle? Someone like me, I want to get out of my house and see shuttles that take me to the metro in order for me to use public transport. But I don't have that. So I have to use my car. And I have to go through SALIC. So that policy means nothing. And I don't know if the Dubai people here, some of them are here. So you are from Dubai. Okay, so a lot of policies, when you put a policy, you need to think, what is the impact of this policy? What is the required impact? And design it upon that. Is it time? All right. That's why I was running, see? So I will keep this. There is in the first slide, there is a barcode for this presentation, because after that, there is a lot of interesting stuff for government, how to build structures, how to build our teams, how to talk about our capacity. So it is actually, the mobility is a basic right for everyone, and we as governments, okay, we have to change ourselves. Okay, we have to change because we say resilience, we say a lot of shiny words, and we can hear it in all conferences. A lot of shiny words, but we need to change the vehicle. We need to restructure ourselves, make ourselves more efficient, and teach everyone the future foresight tools in order to share the planning with everyone in the organization. And thank you very much. I didn't finish my presentation, but thank you. Thank you. It's a long one. Yeah.
Do you want your... Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Leila. I'm just going to introduce the other two panelists now for the panel session. So joining Dr. Leila on stage is Mr. Abdullah Al Ali, the Regional Director of Emirates Transport UAE. Please, a round of applause for Mr. Abdullah. And our final panelist for this session is Dr. Shreyas Paliani, Senior Consultant at Arthur D. Little. Please welcome him up onto the stage as well. Thank you. Hi, welcome. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Leila. That was a great presentation. As a transport planner myself, I am always fascinated with these topics, and I've got a lot of questions, and I think there's a lot of things that you and I can get into a debate about, so I'm really looking forward to that discussion. But before we jump into that, I'd like to make sure that Mr. Abdullah, perhaps you could introduce...
I'll speak in Arabic, because I've seen all the people here in Arabic.
Please do, yes.
Thank you.
So if you could introduce yourself.
اسمي عبد الله عبد الرحمن، أنا من مواصلات الإمارات، عندي خبرة قرابة 20 سنة، طبعا أنا مشتغل يا ليلى في يوم من الأيام في هيئة الطرق والمواصلات، قاتلنا مع بعض يعني، وطلعنا طبعا أنا كملت 10 سنين، هي طلعت قبلي، وأنا صرت الحين أنا في مواصلات الإمارات مدير العمليات، أدير معهد مواصلات الإمارات اللي هو يشرف على تعليم القيادة وتدريب الموظفين الداخليين في مواصلات الإمارات.
At the end. And you want to be switched to under the names. Very good. Yeah. I'm okay. Good. Now, Dr. Shreyas, perhaps you could also provide us with a short introduction to yourself, a little bit of background, please.
Thank you, Martin. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm a senior consultant with Arthur D. Little Dubai. My specialization is transport policy and planning with a focus on sustainable public transportation. Prior to this, I've worked with various governments like the Singapore government and other governments in the Middle East and Asia Pacific. Currently, I'm involved in mega projects in the region. And I have a background in academia, industry, and government. So I've been lucky to work with diverse stakeholders, and I'm happy to be a part of the panel here and looking forward to an interesting discussion.
Very good. And as with the last panel session, there's an opportunity for members of the audience to ask questions. So if you have any questions, once you've listened to the speakers, if you have any questions, just raise your hand so that I can see you and I can make sure the microphone is brought to you for questions. So let me start, Abdullah, with you, if I may, as the first question. In terms of Emirates Transport, I always think of Emirates Transport as a school bus provider. I always feel that's like the most sort of visible measure of it. But I know you've got, from our earlier discussions, there's a lot more to Emirates Transport. So what do you see as sort of the key areas? What do you see as growing markets within your business? What should we look out for?
في البداية أنا بس أبغى أقول لكم مواصلات الإمارات هي بدت في 1981 مثل ما تعرفون هي شالة الكل اللي جالسين في القاعة كل اللي جالسين في القاعة ركبوا بواصاتنا فيعني الكل عارف مواصلات الإمارات باللون الأصفر بس مواصلات الإمارات بدت تدخل السوق وحطت استراتيجية جديدة ودخلت في عالم الترانسبورت اند ليز اللي هو النقل والتأجير، ودخلت في عالم المينتننس والريبير اللي هو الصيانة، ودخلت في عالم البزنس اللي هو يخدم الأفراد. فإحنا اليوم كمواصلات الإمارات عندنا أكثر من 35 ألف سيارة بمختلف الأنشطة، نشتغل في المواصلات المدرسية، ننقل أكثر من 260 ألف طالب يومياً من المنزل إلى المدرسة ومن المدرسة إلى المنزل. وعندنا اللي هي المواصلات التجارية اللي هي تخدم كافة القطاعات، قطاعات العمال، الجامعات، المدارس الخاصة. عندنا اللي هي نقل الموظفين، نقل الموظفين الشركات، عندنا نقل موظفين حتى الشركات العمالية. بعدين عندنا فاينلي عندنا اللي هو النقل الافراد، عندنا شركات تاكسي، عندنا اكثر من 3 شركات تاكسي موجودين احنا بابو ظبي، موجودين في عجمان، كنا موجودين في الفجيره بس خلاص انسحبنا من العقد، موجودين في دبي ليموزين، موجودين في ابو ظبي ليموزين. فاحنا اليوم شركه متشعبه الاطراف، داخلين في كافه القطاعات. وهذا يعني اكون صريح وياكم توجه حكومي، احنا اليوم من الشركات الحكوميه اللي تدعم كل الحكومات في كافه الامارات، عشان كذا احنا متواجدين في كل الامارات، عندنا بنيه تحتيه قويه، عندنا انظمه قويه تخدمنا يعني، واحنا اليوم يعني مع الجميع موجودين في كافه الامارات. بس.
Thank you very much, Abdullah. Now, I think, from what you were saying, there's definitely a growth in the usage of public transport. There's a demand for it, there's a growth in it. But it's still not the majority of the travel. If I look to other world cities, you can see much higher percentages, for example, of public transport use. So I'd like to sort of move on to Dr. Shreyas, if I may now, for the next question. So we have, here in the UAE, we have, what is it, like 20, 25% maybe public transport, depending on which city you're looking at. What kind of things do we need to look at to encourage more people to use public, or even more sustainable forms of transportation?
Well, starting with the easy questions, Martin. You're right in the aspect that, and Dr. Leila touched upon this briefly in her presentation, that the culture over here matters a lot. I've been born and brought up in the UAE as well, and I'm, a little ashamed to say that I too have been part of that culture, of the car-centric culture, and it took a long time for myself to change my thinking as well, having lived abroad, and working with different governments and understanding the best practices that they followed. What I can say about the UAE is it's not just a one-step solution. I know there are representatives from the government here for Ajman Transport and other Emirates. So it's a multiple faceted solution. You have to start from Transport Planning 101, which is transit-oriented development. It's not just about building infrastructure. It's about building meaningful infrastructure in meaningful neighborhoods. So just like Dr. Dheeraj said in the session before, you have to make sure that your transport infrastructure is utilized by the public as well. So building is number one, changing behavior is another one, incentivizing your public to use transport. As Dr. Leila said, when Salik came out, a lot of people didn't know what the purpose was for. I still have a lot of people complaining to me that Salik has made my life difficult to drive in the UAE. I said, well, that's news to me because that's exactly what they want to do. They want you to get off the road. They want you to use public transport. But even small things like educating the public, telling them the government is doing this so that you will shift your behavior. So I'm not going to get into all the solutions due to lack of time, but I just wanted to give you an example of how small changes in different facets can bring about big results.
Very good, and that sort of leads on nicely to my next question, where I've been dying to ask this question of Dr. Leila. So as a transport planner, I would say that there is this definite predict and provide approach, right? So we tend to look and say, well, if this is the increase in traffic flow now, if this is the increase in population, we are going to factor that up by another 20 years, and therefore everyone will travel exactly the same way they are now, and therefore we need more roads, because it's obvious, right? what else would you do? So how do we get away from that predict and provide? What are the alternatives to predict and provide in terms of strategizing what the future is of transport, so that we don't just keep building more and more roads to the point where there's no alternative left?
Yeah. Well, when I talked about future foresight, is it better now? When I talked about future foresight, I said something very important. We need to forget about prediction. Prediction is old school. Future foresight is understanding how we can imagine the future and make it. We need to make the future instead of predict it and be adaptable to the future. For example, if we have coastal, we are a beautiful coastal country, okay? And we have issues with all the traffic. Why not use the sea? Why not use technologies in the future and do coastal? Now we have planes on, have you heard about gliders? Anyone heard about gliders? So gliders are planes. They are very fast, 300, I think, kilometer per hour, and they are used as marine vessels, but they are they are planes. And we are a coastal country. Why not use a new mean of transport? We need to understand behavior. We are doing prediction based on statistics, but we need to understand how the community is going to evolve. And the most important thing is we need to talk to each other. And that is the big issue when we designed RTA. Urban planners of Dubai are working together. I'mar is developing their areas. Nakhil is developing. Everybody is developing, but nobody is talking to each other. So we had a fragmented urban plan in Dubai, and it's going again the same thing. Abu Dhabi, they are going slower. So Addar and Modern, and they are slowly talking to urban planners in executive office. But in Dubai, the problem was there's no harmonization between the players. If we have all the players harmonized together, okay, and then we can do a much better job in preparing for the future. I remember 10 years ago, I drew a full chart of organization structure of all the transport players in the UAE, okay? I was the general secretary of the infrastructure and transport between UAE and KSA. So we wanted to coordinate between UAE and KSA all the transport and link it together, okay? So what I prepared for that project is I drafted a huge organization structure, who does what in transport. And believe me, it was like a spider web. So
Yeah.
if we don't know who takes decisions, if we don't know how the players are working together, and if it is that complex, complexity will create complexity, right? So if you are complex, you don't talk to each other, and then you are not going to have a smooth master plan of transport, a very smooth plan without having uninterrupted journey for the commuters. I gave an example. I get out of my house. I have to use the car. It's not only the culture. We are, yes, we love our cars, right? But I don't have an option. So if you are giving options, it's about
Yes.
options.
I think I think the talking, the communication, there's so much data, right? And how you bring all that data together so that it's talking and that we can make some sort of strategy from it. One of the topics that we talk about in transport planning is a real-time base model now.
Yeah.
So instead of looking backwards, maybe 5 years at the last data, we're looking at data that is live, whether it's from mobile phone data or how many people are using their mobile phones, around the city and how that all fits together. So these are new innovations, Abdullah, right? New innovations that we use to improve our transport provision. What kind of innovations at Emirates Transport, how are you looking to the future in your services through innovative means? What do you see as the way forward?
مثل ما تعرفون اليوم اللي يعيش في الماضي ما بيعيش في الحاضر. صراحة أقول لكم اليوم إحنا اللي جايين عليه في المستقبل يعني تغيير كامل في عالم المواصلات. من يومين طار التاكسي، طار من مرغم لين مطار المكتوم. هذا التاكسي الهيئة حاطت له خطة يسوي لاندنج، أنا حسب ما قريت في البوست مالهم 42,000 لاندنج بيسوي. كم بيشل يعني هذا فاليوم العالم جاي على متغيرات، وإحنا في مواصلات الإمارات بيني وبينكم لو هالسنين كلها ما تغيرنا حسب المتغيرات والتوجهات الحكومية كان ما شفتونا لليوم. لذلك لو الواحد يراجع حواليه بيشوف كثير من الشركات اللي راحت لأنها ما تغيرت، واللي ما بيتغير ما بيكمل. عشان كذا اليوم لو تلاحظون المعرض أنا أول ما دخلت شفت الدرون موجودة، شفت السيارات الكهربائية مسوي لها دعاية، هالأشياء هاي اليوم جاي تنك يعني. فلذلك احنا في مواصلات الإمارات عندنا خطة استراتيجية عشان نتغير هذا التغير أول شيء. والشيء الثاني عندنا بيج داتا، وي هاف بيج داتا. احنا أكثر من 44 سنة عندنا داتا، هاي الداتا اليوم احنا جالسين نستخدمها ونستفيد منها. عندنا نظام حافلتي اللي هو يدير الطلبة في الحافلات واللي هو يأكد صعود الطالب ونزوله. عندنا أنظمة اللي هي تخدمنا داخليا من ناحية صيانة المركبات، ومن ناحية توجهها للصيانة، ومن ناحية تأكد أنها هي تؤدي الصيانة على الوقت. عندنا النظام اللي هو اليوتيلايزيشن اللي يأكد أن المركبات كلها مستخدمة أفضل استخدام. احنا اليوم في عصر إذا ما واكبنا هاي المتغيرات اللي جاية ما أعتقد بنكمل. عشان كذا اليوم أنا بسأل سؤال، احنا اليوم في الشوارع نشوف وايد سيارات كهربائية، كم نسبتها اليوم من السيارات اللي موجودة؟ 150,000 بس اليوم ترى سيارات كهربائية تمشي على الطريق. فاحنا اليوم هاي الثقافة كيف بنقدر نزرعها في الناس هذيل؟ الاوتونوموس كار مثلا، السيارة اللي بتمشي بروحها، أنتم كلكم عندكم ثقة اليوم تركبونها، هاي وايد مهمة. هاي ترى اليوم احنا اليوم ترى على فكرة السيارة هاي يستخدمونها بالعالم الآخر، الاوتونوموس مطبق الناس تستخدم هاي السيارات. فلذلك هاي الأشياء أنا اليوم كمشغل عندي بيني وبينكم عامل السائق وايد أزمني، فأنا اليوم لما أجيب سايق وأكفله. فلذلك أنا اليوم هاي التكنولوجيا إن يوم تدخل الماركت وأنا بقدر أستخدمها وايد بتوفر علي اون تايم، بتقلل الأكسيدنت، بتقلل الفاين، بتقلل المصروف الفيول. لذلك احنا وايد يعني عندنا توجه ان نكون في هذا الاتجاه اللي هو بيقلل بيرفع من الكفاءة التشغيلية وبيقلل من المصاريف اللي موجودة عندنا كمؤسسة.
Thank you very much. Very good. We're almost out of time. I am going to give the audience one more chance in case there's any questions that you have for any of the panelists. Please raise your hand now. Although I'm sure the panelists would be happy to take questions after this session as well if you wanted to ask in private. I do have one last question for Dr. Schreier, which is, given all these innovations and targets that we have, how do we even think about setting goals in all of this? Because, I could say, we need to have 100% autonomous vehicles by, 2035. How do we know what's realistic? How do we check that? How do you go about sort of setting those goals and KPIs and targets?
That's a good question, Martin. So what I've realized, the best ways that governments do this is when you set a goal, it has to be an ambitious goal. It cannot be a mediocre goal. Now, how you're going to get there, that's a different story because there's different aspects of phasing. But when you're going to set a goal, you have to set an ambitious goal that is in line with sustainability, both in terms of mobility, climate adaptations, all sorts of things. Even it can be a greenfield project like what Saudi is doing right now with NEOM or other cities, or it can be retrofitting projects. For example, like the Emirates is doing, we have existing road-based infrastructure and we are moving towards the future. But what's common across all these assets is that you should set an ambitious transport goal that looks to boost mobility. Yes, we are living in a world of virtual Internet of Things, all sorts of extra fittings that allow a virtual-based living. But as a transport planner, I'm hopeful for a future where people will move more and we will emit less.
Wow, wise words. And you know what, that's just made me think of a challenge for you all. If I asked you to think of like one word to describe how we should be thinking about transport in the future, if I asked you, and I put you all on the spot because I didn't ask you beforehand, so this is very cheeky of me. But think of one word, you know, for me, I always think it should be this community, like we should be thinking at a community level. And I think, Dr. Leila, you mentioned about the importance, not just to be thinking about one group or another, right? We think as a community. So I'm going to start with Dr. Shrez, and then I'll move across to give you all time. But Dr. Shrez, any particular word you think for the future?
Yeah, I just have one sentence to say, and I say this in all my classes when I deliver lectures, that look to move people and not cars or buses or trains. It should be people-centered. Your goal is to just move people as efficiently and comfortably as possible. That's it.
Very good, thank you. Dr. Leila.
Well, I will say something. Maali Matar Tayer, he put a vision statement for RTA, which is something that we all aspire for, which is smooth transport for all.
And safe.
And safe, smooth and safe transport for all.
Yes.
So I think this is something that even after 100 years or 200 years, this is valid. This is our vision. Smooth and safe transport for all, inclusive.
Very good.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. And Abdullah, your word or phrase.
أنا بس أبغى أقول كل واحد منكم خلي يجهز له لوحة لأنه بيعلق لي سنة على الإدارة قريب لأن السيارة بتسوق بروحها وبترتاح المواصلات جاية على وضع وايد أريح سيارة بتسوق روحها أنت بتجلس ورا مرتاح توديك وين ما تبغي لا حوادث لا مخالفات ولا أي شيء هذا المرحلة الجاية من المواصلات بتكون وايد مريحة والكل بيستمتع في سيارته لأن سيارتك بتكون فيها big screen البيج سكرين هاي بتشوف فيها whatever you like to see يعني but at the end your journey will be very smooth easy AI and easy going and coming لا وبعدين في شيء بقول لكم إياه هذا ترى إيلون ماسك من فترة سواها راح للمكتب مالي يوم كان في وزارة ترامب نزل وقال للسيارة شكرا روحي سوي لي بزنس راحت تكست السيارة عملت جيت 4-5 ترب ورجعت سوت له فلوس فالمرحلة الجاية من المواصلات ترى توتالي ديفرنت فخلكم جاهزين وإن شاء الله القادم أفضل من ناحية المواصلات في شيء بقول لكم إياه قبل لا أختمه اليوم الفيرست امبريشن لأي واحد يدخل أي دولة شيئين ترى الطرق والمواصلات فأنت أي دولة تدخلها تشوف طرقها زينة ومواصلاتها متطورة شو تعطي ترست لك وتعطي ترست للمستثمر انه والله لا انا اليوم ادخل عمان يوم دخلتها تفاجأت شفت جسر شي رفعني ونزلني قلت ما شاء الله هذا متى سووه الجسر هذا فهذا يدل على تقدم الاماره يعني وتقدم الامارات كلها فاحنا اليوم قاداتنا يدعمون هذا التحول اللي تشوفونه برا ترى الاي اي الناس اليوم في مركبين اليوم للاي اي مركب رافضنا وهذول ترى اغلب الناس رافضينه واحنا من الناس قادتنا متبنين الاي اي وضاخين فيه اموال كثيره ويعرفوا ان احنا جايين على توجه جدا مغاير عما بتشوفونه في العالم كله واللي يزورونهم شكرا جزيلا سامحوني انا طولت
Thank you very much for all your words, your 3 words that you gave me. I think a big round of applause. That was a very inspirational. I learned a lot from that particularly, but please a big round of applause for all the panelists here today.